It's Patrick, founder of Screenplay app, the app for student screenwriters. How do you come up with your plot ideas, your story ideas? What do you do to come up with your story ideas? Do you go on a walk on the beach with your puppy and you get inspired by watching the ocean wave dance with the sand? Do you go in the park and watch the tree leaves dance with the squirrels? Obviously, I'm making this up. I'm curious to know though, how do you really come up with your plot and story ideas? I'm going to tell you how I come up with my plot and story ideas. Typically, how I do it, the first thing I do is I think about some of my favorite films, right? Once I think about some of my favorite films, I think, okay, they are my favorite films for a reason because they're unique. I love the story ideas. I don't want to do that. Then I think about, okay, what story would I like to see? What stories that I would like to see that hasn't been done yet? Something that inspires me to get excited. Before, I mentioned this before, where I used to write everything, meaning I would write a drama, I would dabble in comedy, I would do action, suspense. I was all over the place. Now, however, my main focus is sci-fi. I love a good science fiction. Science fiction is my main focus, which that helps me narrow it down, right? Once I know what genre I'm going to write, then I think about, okay, what crazy ideas, what crazy sci-fi ideas that hasn't been done yet. I look around, meaning if I'm at my house, if I'm outside, I look around. Anything could inspire me. I may be looking at this iPad right now. I'm recording on. I think about, okay, what would happen if this iPad came to life and started acting crazy? I'm not going to do that. This is just an example. Or I may just stare at my door. I may think to myself, that door over there, where did that door come from? Did it just pop up, appear out of nowhere? This is just like examples. This is not actually stories that I've thought about or I've used. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Once I look around my apartment or outside, I think to myself, okay, if I still don't have an idea, then what? Luckily, I've been fortunate where my methods always work for me. I always get inspired by staring at things or thinking about what stories I want to see or going outside. I've never been stuck where I can't come up with a plot. You might be someone who gets stuck, and that's totally fine. I'm curious to know though, when you do get stuck, then what do? Eventually you have to come up with something you have to write. Do you get inspired by things you love? Do you do some type of version of a story that you really like? How do you do it? You've heard before that, I'm sure you've heard this, I've heard this, all stories have been done before. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day. He mentioned that there are really 3 story ideas. Everything else is just a version of those 3 story ideas. However true that is, someone also said there's nothing new since Shakespeare. I kind of believe that. I think really all story ideas have been done before. Let me tell you though, one story that I've seen recently, Tenet. I'm not sure if you've seen the movie Tenet. Tenet is something that someone would write if they took a trip to space with no mask while smoking weed on a rainbow. That doesn't make no sense, right? Exactly. I still enjoyed it though. I would argue that Tenet is probably the 4th story. You know how, like I told you before, my friend said there's only 3 story ideas ever in existence? You might have to add Tenet to that list. Tenet might be number 4. Tell me if I'm wrong. I've never ever seen a story or plot like Tenet. I would love to sit down with Christopher Nolan and ask him, okay, Mr. Nolan, first of all, congratulations on being an amazing filmmaker. You came up with Inception. What version of Acid was this? Was that version 2.0 of Acid? Because, right now, Tenet is version 4.0 of Acid. Before he would call security to get me out of the interview, I probably wouldn't get no answer from him. Tenet is such a mind-bending story plot. I've heard people say this, that, or people who like Tenet, they don't know why they like it. Tenet is so confusing. I don't know why I like Tenet. I know that it's a good story. I understand it. I don't understand it, if that makes sense. I understand it. I really don't know what's happening. It's the type of story where it's a loop. If you've seen Tenet and you could explain Tenet to me in one sentence that I would get what's it about, please feel free. Let me know what Tenet is about. Recently though, there was one story idea I came up with where, no, it's not as crazy as Tenet. I came up with it on a dream. That was the first time I've ever actually had a dream and thought to myself, I think I'm going to try and write this screenplay. I've had dreams before where I've woken up, I thought to myself, ooh, I get excited, but I never really took it any further. This last dream I had was something I was like, ooh, I really, really want to try and do this. I wrote it, and I'm still in the process now of writing it. I think it's great. Obviously, it was a dream, and there's things that changed from the dream, but the core of the story that I had from the dream is still there. Yes, it's a science fiction. Like this video if you think Tenet is the craziest plot you've ever seen, or subscribe if you have a crazier idea than Tenet. If you think about writing your first screenplay, go to your favorite app store, download Screenplay app today. Remember to always have fun writing. Fade out.